Kira has a hidden feature that turns it from a welterweight champion to a heavy hitter knockout. Let's talk about Kira's marketplace. One of the things that we didn't cover in our initial Kira video, which we will card to right there, was all about Kira's marketplace and plugins. And there was a good reason for it, because the vast majority of people that install Kira aren't going to use this to start. Eventually they will find it and they will realize that they've been missing out on a lot. But I want to give a huge shout out before we get too deep into this to Eric Cederberg and 3D Verkstan, because without Eric, this video would not be going the way that it's going. Eric is pretty close to the development of Kira, and he actually put together an entire list in our previous video that details his top 10, it's actually 11, favorite plugins for Kira, and I want to go through them. Now, I'm going to be very clear here. I already filmed this video. My computer decided that 60-ish seconds before the video was done, like I was doing my outro, hard lock, which means all of the installing of these programs has already been done. So I'm going to go through them and talk about them, but I promise you guys, it is really easy to add them on, and I will show you how easy it is. But before you start playing inside of the marketplace, there is one thing that you do have to do. And I'm waiting for the groaning. It's not just make an account here, because you do have to make an account with Kira, but I do need you to like this video and make sure that you get subscribed. And leave a comment below of what your favorite marketplace item is inside of Ultimaker Kira. There are some pretty awesome ones. But yes, go ahead and make yourself an account with Kira. That way everything syncs. Now, I would normally say I don't like making accounts, and I don't. But Kira actually shows you what you are opting into when you make an account. You know, there's a slicer that doesn't do that. Oh yeah, that's right, it's matter control. We'll card that video right there if you want to see a little Grant rant in the middle of an actual video that nobody saw coming. There were no notes found. That one was a crazy one. But I don't have too much of an issue with Kira. Ultimaker has some amazing security policies, and they show them all to you. So let's take a look at the marketplace. The first time you load in the marketplace, it is going to take a little bit to load. So it's not your computer, it's just the marketplace is slow. Just let it go. Now, these are some of your basic plugins that work with Kira. I believe there are 58 in total. You've got materials as well. So if I wanted to say, I don't know, pull some 3DX Tech materials, you can pull quite a few of them. People have put these in there already. And you see that there's lots of other options available too. And you guys can see these are all of my installed ones. Let's just go through them. The first and foremost plugin that everybody should have, and if you don't have it, go get it right now, because it makes the actual user experience of Kira considerably better. And it is called the Settings Guide. It is a guide on what settings do and how to use them. Right-click on a setting to access the guide. It is the most important marketplace item. If there is one item that you get, it should be the Settings Guide. It is just brilliant and useful for both newbies and experienced users, since most people do not know all of the hundreds and hundreds of settings by heart. And yes, there are hundreds of settings inside of Kira. It's kind of crazy, and spoiler alert, this thing is way better than you think it is. There are, for some of them at least, pictures of how it works, phenomenal descriptions, and even on ones that have way more detail, links to take you to other websites to learn more. Man, so good, so freaking good. The next one is going to be Mesh Tools, and this thing adds several mesh analysis and manipulation tools. And this is by Field of View. You're gonna see this name come up a couple of times. Field of View makes a lot of really great plugins for Cura, so keep an eye on them for future plugins coming soon. But it adds easy tools to help you split STLs that contain multiple meshes into separate parts, which is, yes, something that Prusa Slicer can do. If you're wondering all about Prusa Slicer, we'll card to that video right here. But Cura can't until this add-on. This is great. And again, these are all free, freaking free. The fact that this kind of stuff comes at no additional charge to the consumer is mind-boggling to me. And it makes sense why Cura's like, we're not gonna take the time to implement it, because there are such good implementations on the plugin side. And yes, quick Google searches will lead you right to the marketplace. And of course, the marketplace is right up in the top right-hand corner of your screen. We've also then got something that I wish Cura would bring in natively. It is their custom supports. It gives you tools to easily create custom support material if you only want it in part of your model or want to add to support you've already generated. But do note, this is exact verbatim from Eric. One thing that is a bit unintuitive with custom supports plugin is that the support you place are affected by all the normal support settings, which are hidden if support generation is turned off. So if you want to have support in a specific place, you might have to turn on support generation, set the settings as you want them, and then turn off support generation again before slicing to not have supports added everywhere. And I think those big things are more toward the contact Z distance, the overhang threshold, and like how far your support is from your part. So do make sure that you do that, because even if those settings are hidden because you have support turned off, it still matters. Something to note, but I believe once you kind of understand that bit of it, it makes sense, right? That inherently makes sense to me. It doesn't use its own custom set of settings. It pulls it directly from the machine itself. Startup optimization. Now, I already have startup optimization installed. What I can tell you is, from my experience, it does save some time on the startup. What it definitely saves time on is all of the computational math that occurs inside of Cura, because it only loads the things that you need. Cura does have an architecture that loads exactly every printer, material, and profile that you have installed in your system each time you start it, and this makes the startup process pretty slow, especially on low-end systems. This is even further exacerbated when you have hundreds of printers and materials that you're playing with. This is why businesses tend to grab onto a brand or two max so that you don't fill up your printers with tons of different ones. The more you have, the more cumbersome this is. Now, this is a pretty clean install of Cura, so there's not a whole lot on there. So Startup Optimizer doesn't do a lot for me. Mind you, we are also running a reasonably high overclocked computer, which definitely doesn't point to why the computer randomly locked up when recording a video. It couldn't be my fault now, could it? But it does assist this, and that's important to me, right? It disables loading of anything that is unused, any materials you're not using, any profiles, and just loads what is relevant to you currently. Now, if you go to switch in other things, it will load those as you go. Again, only loading the stuff that matters, which is why for this fresh and clean install of Cura, it doesn't really do a lot. But if you've had Cura for many years and you are not using Startup Optimizer, you should be. And if you don't believe me, try it. Literally close all of your Cura windows, save them of course, because let's be real, if you all are anything like me, you have more than one window open at a time. Close them all out, start a timer, and load up Cura. Then install Startup Optimizer, restart Cura, and see. I will bet you will see a non-trivial distance there. It's a great thing to have, and it doesn't load it down all that much at all. And again, another awesome field of view add-on. The next we have is Title Bar Info, which again is from Field of View. Awesome, and there's over 44,000, almost 45,000 downloads of this because it adds version and current job name to the title bar, which sounds So freaking simple, but you know what? When you have multiple windows open and you can't easily see all the little previews that it gives you, this is great for going through and choosing the ones that you want. Beautiful to have, absolutely highly recommended. Then we get to one of my favorites, and it was one of my favorite features. I believe in Matter Control, it is the measuring tool. This allows you to measure parts, and I will tell you, this would have saved my bacon the other day. We were printing out a multi-piece part, and everything fit together with mortise and tenon, right? So pin and hole. Well, I accidentally had horizontal size compensation turned on. Had I had a measuring tool inside of Prusa Slicer, that would have saved my bacon well over a few hours of a little bit of manual labor, and in a few cases, we actually just reprinted the parts. And it would have resulted in, well, less frustration in the end. Very valuable, again from Field of View, but only 27,000 downloads. We have one that I love from Super Slicer, and we'll put Super Slicer card to it as well. It is the Tab Anti-Warping, so let's open it and take a look. It does exactly what you think. It adds tabs to corners of parts, and when you are working on big models, just like I talked about inside of the Super Slicer video, tabs are incredibly valuable. And there's not an easy way to do it inside of Prusa Slicer. There's an easy way inside of Super Slicer. And with this plugin, there is a very easy way to do it inside of Cura. And 113,000 people clearly agree with this. Amazing. If you don't have this, install. These are all very much like massive quality of life improvements, especially if you are printing often. Now, these next ones are vague, okay? They are your integration. So everything from 3D Printer OS, you've got ones for Creality Cloud, for the Dremel printers, for Duet and RepRap, which, God, that would be so much easier. Uploading directly utilizing Dremel 3D, FlashForge, SnapMaker was in there, Hydra's in there. There are a lot of printer brands that have direct-to-print buttons that work inside of Cura, so you don't need to save it to an SD card or upload it via USB. It instantly does all of that work for you, which makes it really, really simple. Mind you, of course, a lot of them are pre-supported inside of Cura, Prusa being one of them, but these will make it easier for those that don't have it, okay? And just like with 3D printer integrations, we have CAD integrations. CAD integrations are one of the next things that is absolutely amazing about these add-ons. Things like SolidWorks integration. We know a lot of you use SolidWorks. We use Fusion 360, and eventually we're going to move into FreeCAD, which, oh yeah, there's one for FreeCAD too. But SolidWorks is great because it is considered one of the industry standards. And currently there isn't a good way to go from SolidWorks directly into Cura. You'd have to save as an STL and then load it in. With the SolidWorks integration, you get one button click from SolidWorks into Cura, which is awesome. Now understand, SolidWorks is not free, but you can get it for relatively affordable if you don't mind a student edition. So if you're just doing it for learning, educational purposes, non-commercial, you can join the Experimental Aircraft Association, EAA, and for $40, I think their membership's like $40 a year, you get a copy of SolidWorks Student Edition for no additional charge. It's a great way to learn SolidWorks before you spend the money. Speaking of money, this episode is brought to you by 3D Musketeers. If you have an idea that you want to go from art to part, head to hands, we can help you out over at 3D Musketeers. Links will be in the description down below. And until we get real sponsors, I'm going to do myself a favor and sponsor myself, because we've been doing that for a while now, and I've not been talking about what we do here at 3DM. We make cool stuff. We could make stuff for you. But really, talking about money is CATIA. CATIA is one of those softwares, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. But it is great to see a CATIA integration as well as a Blender integration. And I like that there's a Cura Blender, which reads blend files, and that its icon is a Blender picture. I think that's like, there are just these little things like, oh, I see what you did there, and I like it. But there's also support for FreeCAD, so if you are a big advocate of FreeCAD, which I'm hoping that we can get to, I want to start trying FreeCAD out, but I still struggle with Fusion 360. So let me know down in the comments. We do live streams every Wednesday where I design something in Fusion 360. Would you like to see me transition over to FreeCAD? Because FreeCAD is 100% free and doesn't have any limitations for whatever license that you have. We use an education license when we do education stuff like on YouTube, but we have a paid account for all hardcore 3DM business. FreeCAD is just free. They don't care. That's pretty cool for a lot of people. It also doesn't have a cloud feature, which is a bit of a bummer for us, but if you want to see me use FreeCAD, let me know down in the comments, because I'd do it if you would subscribe and like this video as well. Next up are your post-processing scripts. That's not actually a plugin, but is an often overseen function of Cura. So let's take a look at them. We've got lots of options where you can display file name and layer, display print infos on LCD, things like pause at height, which will pause the printer when it gets to a certain height, and that's great if you wanted to do something like insert hardware, like a M5 nylon lock nut into your parts so you have threads that are easily available and you don't have to cut them yourself or use some sort of a heat set insert. Beautiful. Now, Prusa Slicer, of course, supports this natively and a little bit easier to find than post-processing, but this is great for those that want that little bit of extra control without having to hard code it. So if we look at pause, we have all these options for pause at height. We have our height number. We have our method, which depending on your type of printer, you can change. You have your disarm timeout, and it's after this time steppers are going to disarm, meaning they can easily lose their position. Set this to 0 if you don't want to set any duration. Leave that at 0. It lets you choose where you park your printhead X and Y, if you have any retraction, if there is a speed for it. Lots of great options here for that script. Okay, so don't sleep on these. There's lots here for you to mess around with, and it is per print. So you add the script. Let's say I want G-code documentation, and that is per print. Okay, that is not like something that updates all your settings at once. It's just a per print thing. And then, of course, someone from the EU, we're gonna have an honorable mention of Barbarian units, and it is an extension that enables users to quickly convert models from inches to metric. And I guess there's a little backstory to this. It is written by one of the Cura lead devs in his free time and released privately just so Ultimaker wouldn't have a say about the name or logo. I happen to love it. It's for all you Yanks out there that think that metric is wrong, and I'm here to tell you, no, you're wrong. And if you think I'm wrong, leave a comment, and we'll have definitely a high quality discussion about inches versus metric and how really metric is the right way to go. But yes, it's an easy way to do it. Of course, you can just multiply by 25.4 and it gets the job done. But hey, it's funny to have, and I like the name, and I love the Viking guy. I can't hate on it, man. As an American that uses inches and miles in day-to-day conversations and constantly has to make these changes in their head, like when I'm talking with people about what we're doing, oh yeah, the part's 200, I mean, it's 8 inches long, because 200 millimeters and 8 inches are, it's 203.2 millimeters to 8 inches. It's close enough. The average, person will understand 8 inches. The average person's not going to understand 200 millimeters, at least in the United States, America. But yeah, those are some great options. I also love the calibration shapes. It adds another feature that I'm used to with Super Slicer that makes Super Slicer so amazing, but it does it with a plugin for Cura. So I highly recommend this as well. And that would enable you to not need Super Slicer to do all of your calibrations. So there's a lot of power here. And there's not a lot of plugins. I think there's 58 total. But when you look at what they're able to do and what they add, oh my gosh, right? Things for linear advance, like literally just adds easy linear advance inside of your firmware. So useful. But I want to highlight the general settings. So we're going to go under extensions, settings guide, and we're going to click settings guide. Let's just choose, I don't know. Let's just randomly, I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to click on one. What did we get? We got infill overlap percentage. If the infill overlaps a bit with the walls, it will adhere better to the walls, causing the part to be much stronger. This setting controls how much infill overlaps the walls as a percentage of the line width of the infill. So there you go. And it even shows you a visualization of how it works. I love this. You have your outer wall, your inner wall, your infill. Yellow is something, I'm sure, and then white. So yes, increasing it will result in stronger parts, but if you increase it too much, you will see it through every single time. So be careful about that. Even things down to like adhesion tendency. It's a descriptive setting describing a property of a material being used to print, describes how well the material tends to adhere itself, mainly how strong the interlayer adhesion is. I have no idea what it means or what it does or how I can use it, but currently the only effect of this setting is in the prime tower to determine which material gets used to print the strong outer shells to keep the tower up. Without this, I wouldn't know what that's for, because there's like settings for things like surface energy and if you have a crystalline material, more than what most people need. We look at skirt brim speed. How about wall acceleration? And there was one for print jerk. Jerk in 3D printing is not the same as jerk in physics. We talked about this on a previous podcast, I believe. We talked about the jerk settings, but take a read for this yourself or pause the video right here to get a read. It's actually really interesting how the term jerk for normal kinematics and the term jerk for 3D printing are totally different, but yet they're interchanged often. It's literally due to a lack of knowledge from other people. We can see enabling jerk control also has a acceleration and jerk curve to show you what it looks like. This is cool to me, and it helps, especially if you're a newbie, understand what does some of this stuff mean? What does retraction mean? I think this is cool, and apparently inside of your regular settings, yeah, just clicking on it shows you so much more. You can right click, go to the settings guide. It will show us more information all about it, as well as, yes, I mean, it is similar to what you would see from regular Cura, although I don't think regular Cura does this. I'm pretty sure this is just the settings guide, but yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's real cool. Settings guide to me is probably my favorite one, but let me know in the comments, out of all of the marketplace items, which one is your favorite? What options do you think that are missing? I'd love to know. And hey, it's clear the Cura devs are watching this, so hi Cura devs, how you doing? Thanks for making a pretty awesome software and enabling community support of this. I think that's one of the coolest things, that community members are able to make their own plugins, assuming they know what they're doing. But again, huge shout out to Eric and 3D Verkstan for providing us with a lot of the information on this to make this video. I don't think it would have gone this well if it wasn't for Eric. And shout out to my computer for dying less than 2 minutes from the first recording being finished, so I had to do it again. But you know what? That's the way the world works sometimes. I'm just here so I don't get fined. But I hope you guys stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Print jerk. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Again, in the comments, let us know, what is your favorite plugin from Cura, or what do you think that they're missing? Right below me is the first video about Cura that we did, so go take a look at it, and we'll also have a link to the playlist for the Slicer series. Don't forget, Patreon is coming soon as well, so your name could be right next to me as I'm talking. I'll see you down in the comments. Take care.